How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the STD Podcast. Today we have Renaissance Periodization CEO and new IFBB Pro, Nick Shaw, on the podcast. Nick, how are you doing today?
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me on. This is one of those podcast appearances where I can't wait to tell my mother. I'm like, Mom, I have such great news. I was on the STD podcast today. And she's gonna be like, I'm like, whoa.
We do hope you tell her. We do hope you tell her. She wants to know.
Oh, I'd be really curious to see if my mom ever listened to a podcast like this. She'd just be like, what? I don't know what they're talking about. No, it's funny. How many comments do you guys get about the name of the podcast? And or do you ever get people that reach out randomly, hey, I want to be on the STD podcast, and you're like, I don't think you really do.
Not too many people even address the name, which is interesting. I have some shirts. I have some shirts in. Yeah, Maddie's finishing up the graphic for them. They're slightly vile, if I would say so myself.
Excellent. So we get a little bit, one of the questions again in the RP clients group is what does RP stand for? And 90% of the time it's people that have no RP and they're trying to get in and all that. Probably 9% of the time there's people that just spam bots that just they don't even reply basically anything. Then there's 1% and they think RP stands for role play.
Yeah,
and I guess really interesting.
I love it. I love it.
Super.
The wrong group.
We're
real perverts. RP, real perverts.
Man, there's maybe something there. Maybe that's why Mike wanted to name it RP way back in the day. Could be something to that.
I know Mike could play into that if he wanted to.
Master plan.
Yeah,
so
funny.
Well, Nick, I guess we really wanted to start off and maybe make the base of this podcast about the fact that you just recently won your pro card. So we wanted to talk a little bit about the process and maybe to start from more recently, how does it, I imagine, does it feel much different to be an IFBB Pro? Has your life magically changed? Are sponsorships coming in? What is that like?
Money's just flowing in.
Yeah, there's just so many new opportunities now. I don't know where to begin. No, not really at all. It's super interesting. So, quick backstory: this is actually only the fourth time I've ever competed, and I will say the first two times I ever competed was 2008. And Mike coached me. I was the first ever person that Mike had ever coached through a bodybuilding show. We didn't know what we were doing. I got decently lean, probably single digit body fat, but nothing crazy. But had no idea how to peak. I looked better 3 days before than the day of the show. So whatever. The learning lesson. I don't even know if I was 20 years old then. Maybe I was. Yeah, I was just 20. Anyways, competed again in 2013. Again, we still didn't know what we were doing. Got just wiped off the face of the planet at the Metropolitans in New York City. It's a huge show. So it's almost I almost don't even count those because we literally knew so little and just got our asses kicked. There was man, I don't when you diet like that and it sucks so much and you just completely get your ass kicked, it's really disheartening. Really disheartening. And so, I don't know, man. I kind of took almost 10 years off before I competed again. And I was you know what? I'll try men's physique. Because, I haven't been training legs super seriously or whatever, but obviously I've kept training all throughout. I just love lifting. And then I did the show last fall and, had Jared coach me through it and did pretty well. And that was that was a cool experience because then you go through all that hard work and you're oh, yeah, I actually did well. This is what it's all about. This is actually pretty cool. And so there's part of me that goes this is a really interesting process because I've only competed 4 times. Really 2 of actually knowing what the hell we were doing and to have a pro card, I'm this seems, I don't know what to think here because dude, someone like Mike, he's competed a few times at national level show. I mean, obviously, dude, there's lots of guys that compete at national level shows for many years. And for whatever reason, so I'm I don't know, apparently I got pretty good luck or something like that. So it's really trippy. Again, I wasn't really even planning to do that show. I was actually going to do the one that Mike's doing like I literally would be in Pittsburgh right now if everything was going according to plan. And so, I won it. Didn't It was like 10 o'clock at night. It was crazy, right? Because there's so many people, men's physique, they put at the tail end because they didn't really care about them, whatever. And like I got it. And then like Jared wasn't there because like he's coming to Pittsburgh. So I was like, dude, don't worry about this one. Literally had no one that I knew like backstage. And I'm like looking around, I'm like, the fuck do I do now? I'm like, I don't know. I called a couple of people. I just went back to my hotel room and ate some food and went to bed. And I was like, all right, that's what we did. So yeah, it's really interesting, man. Super, super interesting. Really cool feeling though. But yeah, it's just kind of bizarre because I thought I had a chance, but obviously, I don't know, luck, whatever. Things worked out. So here we are.
Do you almost feel unworthy?
I don't want to say I feel unworthy because I will say I saw some pictures. So there's a guy, Tony, he's actually in the Team Full Rom group. Really cool dude, lives up there. He actually turned pro at the Universe in physique the year before. And so like he took a couple pictures, and I remember because he showed me one of them, and it was like Saturday, I don't know, probably around noon or so. I didn't end up going on stage till like 2 or 3. And I saw those pictures and I thought to myself, holy shit, those are my shoulders. I can't believe that. And then I was like, not that I knew that I was going to be pro or anything like that, but I was like, I at least have a chance. I don't look completely out of place here. Because sometimes you see people and you're like, a little out of place. But when I saw that picture, I was like, oh.
You're like, I belong.
Yeah, exactly. You felt like you belonged.
That's something. Yeah. So I was like, I knew that I had a decent shot in the Masters because I had just turned 35. So obviously, 35 to 39. I would assume, although it's maybe slightly unlike some of the other sports where usually the youngest people in the age group, right? So if it's like 35 to 39, usually the younger people have a little bit better chance. Maybe it's not even the case in bodybuilding. It might almost kind of be the other way because more time, usually you can look a little bit better, whatever. But yeah, it was interesting, man. By the way, like, competing in the Open after was I did pretty good for the Masters. I felt really good for that. Almost didn't have enough time backstage to really think about it. They were just like slight pump up, boom, you're up there. And I was like, oh shit. So then it's like you don't really even have time to think. Like I literally had no idea what happened during all the call outs or whatever. And Tony comes up to me afterwards and he's like, dude, I think you won. And I was like, what? I was like, the fuck are you talking about? I had no idea what was happening up there. Because like you get up there, you just hit your little stuff. They put you in the call outs. I think the way my number was, I started way on the end. They called my number and moved me to like the other side, but not in the middle. And then they moved me again to, I guess I thought there was an odd number of people up there and I knew that I wasn't dead center. So I was like, shit, but like, top 2, probably that's pretty cool. But then when I saw later, there's actually 8 guys up there. So it was me and the other guy were the middle guys. I had no idea though. So anyways, all that happens, get backstage. And I'm like, I don't really know what to do now because Masters was right before the Open physique and I was doing both. So basically had enough time to like sit down, drink a little bit. And it was like basically had to get right back up there, pumping up, do some little touch-ups and go back on. I completely faded like in the Open. Yeah. I don't know, probably chalk that up to lack of experience, never having done a national show, just like didn't really know what was going on. But dude, those guys in the Open, I remember staying there because I didn't even make the first call out. And I just was like, holy shit, these guys look like superheroes. Every single one of them. It was totally freaky. So like that was a good lesson learned of like just how you plan everything. I probably like drank a little bit too much Gatorade right afterwards because I started feeling weird. I felt like a little bloated. I'm like, God, this sucks before I go up there for Open. But it's just one of those things you kind of live and learn. You probably just need some more experience to do well at that. So yeah, that's kind of the general vibe of how all the prejudging stuff went.
Yeah. I remember seeing you up on stage and I was like I think it was the Open call out. I was like, why is he in second? Like I was looking at you through some guys and I was like, he looks phenomenal there, like almost better than some of the people in the first. But yeah, maybe it was some of the fading. Did you and Jared talk about that? Like, was there any, like, what did he think maybe it was?
Not so much because I was more interested of just getting back to the hotel and just eating that
Right.
kind of the meal after prejudging and just like kind of getting back off my feet again. And dude, there were so many guys competing. There was probably at least 400 guys competing that day. And so they were going to start the finals at 5. It ended up getting pushed back till 6. And I remember thinking, like, because I bought the live stream so I could watch it like on my laptop just so I could keep tabs on stuff. So I knew like roughly when to go over. Because Tony had to leave. He was there for prejudging, but he left, so he wasn't there. So I was like all by myself. And I'm like, shit, like, when do I go over? I don't want to go over too soon because then that sucks. You got to sit around. And I just remember thinking it like, I want to say almost 9 o'clock at night. I had to literally leave my hotel room because I was getting so antsy. And I walked over to the venue because, like, what would happen if somehow the live stream was delayed or whatever? Like, I'm not getting any information. Dude, totally overthinking. And I'm just like, I just need something to do. Because, like, dude, I can only sit around for so long. And I'm just like, I'm going to lose my mind. Like, I have to do something. I actually ended up doing some work that night because I was like, it's like 7 o'clock. I'm like, I know I got a couple more hours. I'm like, fuck, I may as well do some work. So I'm just like, I need something to do. But yeah, dude, I didn't end up going back over until like 9:30 at night. And then like the lady saw me coming in. She's like, hey, what number are you? They're getting lined up. And I'm like, oh my God, shit, right? Like,
you're like, I knew it. I knew it.
But then even then, I still had like over a half hour. You know, it's just.
No, these things run so
By the way,
slow.
Oh my gosh. Kudos to the people that run that stuff backstage. They have a thankless job that I'm sure they literally never get thanked for. Overall, I think they did a really good job of how I can only manage, or I can only imagine like how you manage that many people. Oh my God, because they were, I mean, the open overall in men's physique probably wasn't announced until like after 11 o'clock or so, I'm sure. It's like, that's crazy because the athlete meeting is at 7:45 in the morning. And you're like, that's like 15, 16 hours later. So, and a lot of the people didn't have hotel rooms, or at least some people didn't. Like, they just literally had like camping chairs backstage and were just like sitting around all day. Like, oh my God, what a terrible, miserable day. It's just crazy.
So long. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Nick, do you feel like now that you've competed and you've had this pro card after taking this 10-year hiatus, that there's almost like this new band-aid of obsession for bodybuilding that has not only been ripped off, but is like gushing out all over again? Because you loved bodybuilding, and RP, like, that was the genesis of it all, was I think like because you loved bodybuilding so much. Then you took a 10-year hiatus for family, for business, for whatever. But now you're back. And not only are you back, you won. So now, do you feel like you need to start competing on a consistent basis? Like, is this where your head's at? Or you're like, all right, I won, fine, and I did it, and now next thing?
Yeah, a super interesting question because, you know, you never, when you've never competed on a national stage, I don't think you really expect to go in and like win. You're like, okay, best case scenario, obviously that would be awesome if it happens. But like, I basically, you know, I've got 2 kids. When you're really in the thick of contest prep, you know, it's not fun for anyone. Just being completely honest. And so like, I basically told my wife, I'm like, listen, if I ever win my pro card, you know, I'm probably done. Now, again, I didn't expect it to happen. I'm like, try one. So I'm like, well, I did it, mission accomplished. But then I'm like, yeah, I do. Like, I have this sort of reinvigorated love for bodybuilding and, you know, hardcore lifting and all that. And then it's like, okay, I can just keep training for fun, obviously. And so I'm like, I'm trying to switch my mindset a little bit right now to just like, hey, what are some cool strength goals or something that I can go hit in the gym? You know, I don't know. Are there, you know, what's like a cool 10 rep max that I can hit on, you know, hack squat or, you know, bench press or something like that. Like, I'm trying to kind of switch my mindset to that because, yeah, I don't, who knows, maybe someday, right? Because they have master stuff and all that in the IFBBs, but like, definitely I'm kind of just looking forward to like not having that. I think there was just like a lot of stress and pressure that I had put on myself almost, of like, when I knew that I was doing this prep, I definitely put the pedal to the metal more than even last one, where I was maybe even a bit more relaxed.
Which is to be expected, I think. I mean, that's the point. You want to level up from the last time, so of course.
Totally. So like, part of me is like, you know, could you almost get ready for a pro show, but you wouldn't have to quite be so like maniacal about it? I don't know, maybe, because there's like no pressure. Like, I'm not gonna plan on showing up and fucking winning, going to the Olympia.
Nothing to
Like,
lose,
that's
really.
not. Yeah, exactly. There's nothing to lose now. Where it's like before you're working so hard for this, right? So, since that time I was a teenager, seeing all the animal pack ads back in the day, I was like, yeah, I would love to be a pro bodybuilder. And the other ironic thing too is, I always considered myself a bodybuilder. And so it's ironic that I ended up winning it in physique, which is like, dude, physique guys are fucking jacked. Don't get me wrong. Like, they are super impressive. Like I said, standing up there, seeing all the open guys, I was like, oh my God, these guys legit superheroes. Like, big ass delts and arms. I'm like, holy shit. But I remember the tanning lady, she was like, oh, like, what are you competing in? I was like, oh, men's physique. She's like, oh my God, like, your legs are huge. And I was like, thank you. And so, like, I didn't get a shot to do it in bodybuilding, which is like, maybe there's a little bit of like, yeah, I would have loved to have done that and, see how I could have done as like a light heavy. So I think there's a little bit of that. But yeah, dude, definitely just reinvigorated in terms of, using the hypertrophy app too. Just, dude, I love lifting 6 times a week. Like, I usually just like wake up in the morning, like even post show, like the first few workouts post show, I couldn't wait to go train because I was like, this is going to be awesome. So there's definitely just that love that's back, and it is really cool just to have that again because it's like this circling back to our roots, which is just really fun.
Yeah.
Did you intentionally take that 10-year break to build RP and build your family, or life just happened like that?
It was definitely intentional because, again, this goes back to now, maybe it would have been a little bit different if I would have done like even moderately well competing. But like when I had only had 2 experiences and just literally not made first call out in either one of them, like I don't think got dead last, but like close to dead last in both shows. And it leads to some serious questions of like, what the fuck am I doing? Yeah. Of like, I've got a son. My daughter wasn't quite born yet, but I was like, what am I doing here? Like, RPs, like there's a chance it could do well. Again, this is a long time ago, right? Before like templates in the app, all of that. But I was like, you know what? Bodybuilding, you actually have to pay for and compete and like do all this stuff. Don't get me wrong, I love it. But maybe there's a way to keep doing that without like having to be 100% serious about it. And like if I can switch it and like maybe actually make like a decent living from it, that seems like a better thing, not have to be like this absentee father. That's probably also a good thing. So it definitely was like an intentional thing. And like, again, like I kept lifting throughout. It's not like I ever took time off of lifting, but I dabbled in some other things. Like I did jujitsu, Trevor, you know how it is. Like jujitsu was fun, but I didn't love it.
Yeah.
I liked it and I kind of like forced myself to do it because I wanted my son to train jujitsu and all that. But I just never had that like love that I have right now for lifting. I just never got that. I never got that for bodybuilding, or I'm sorry, for jiu-jitsu. And it was interesting because when I was like, you know what, I want to give this a serious run where I want to compete in bodybuilding, I was like, I gotta stop training jiu-jitsu. I'm like, I'm gonna go all in 100%, see what I got here, give it a shot to see if I can, do decent. And yeah, I don't necessarily miss jiu-jitsu that much. So there.
Yeah, I feel
Nick,
that a
what do
lot.
you think your training was like during those 10 years from a volume standpoint? Like, would you say your maintenance for every body part was like, that's what you were training at? Like around 5 to 10 sets a week per body part? Obviously you weren't tracking, or maybe you were.
I was using the men's physique templates that we had because we didn't have the app yet. So I was always using that. But what I did was I did mostly upper body focused stuff. So like a lot more like arms and shoulder stuff, and backed off the leg training. Like my leg training wasn't really that serious. And then like I dabbled and, doing a little bit of like CrossFit type stuff where, I could do Murph.
Yeah, you did
Pretty
Murph for 2 years, didn't you?
Yeah, I was doing like sort of hybrid training. So I would lift 4 times a week. On Wednesdays, I would do some type of like CrossFit workout. And then usually I would take the weekends off. And so, I was still lifting like 5 times a week. The 5th day would be some CrossFit stuff. So like just whatever. But I wasn't training legs super seriously. And so that's what went into the whole like, I'll just do physique because, you don't have to have like the biggest legs in the world or whatever. But just from doing tons of body weight squats or doing some CrossFit stuff and all that, like it's not like my legs completely vanished. And so when I started training them a little bit again, like responded pretty quick. So that would be the biggest change. I wasn't training legs as seriously because I was like,
Nick, you won a bodybuilding or classic at your last show, if I'm not mistaken, right? Or you did really well from what I recall.
yeah, so I doubled up and did so again, I was just planning on doing men's physique. And then I was at Mike's gym about 2 weeks before the show, and I took some pictures and I sent them to Jared, and he's like, dude, do you have glute striations? I have no idea if I do. I'm like, well, I'm doing men's physique. Like, why would I ever even know that I would look at that? And like I did, I had some hints of them, and he's like, dude, you got to do bodybuilding too. And I was like, okay. And
All right.
yeah, I was like, all right, I haven't done posing in like 10 years, but I did like a couple sessions with a posing coach. And it's like, it's one of those things where, you're always kind of posing in the gym, like whatever, but, just some little fine tuning things. But yeah, it was fun, man. So it was a local show here in Charlotte. So it probably wasn't like the most competitive thing in the world. But yeah, so I got first in the light heavies. And then I won my physique class as well. I did not win the overall either, though.
Yeah. I think you told me that story when we were in Vegas, and I was like, that's so, I don't know, it's funny, but it's also really cool at the same time. Like
2 weeks before, you're like, yeah,
sure. Yeah.
Dude, I mean, my leg training, because I was doing men's physique, was honestly embarrassing.
Yeah.
So there's one day that I would do like a good amount of leg press and then some squats after. Like that was day one. And obviously some like usually hamstring exercise and calves after. But like my other day, which was like more of the hamstring focused one, was stiff legged deadlifts. I remember the last mesocycle before the show, and then it was some leg extensions, and like I think that was the only quad movement that I had, and I was like, and I had like pretty good legs up there for bodybuilding, so I'm just like, gee whiz. So as soon as the show was over, I just started hammering like quads again, seriously, and that was pretty fun. Like that it was good to get back into that. Like I had never really done hack squats. I started doing a bunch of hack squats. Yeah, it was great.
And you have the Arsenal one where you train out at no limits, which is great.
The Arsenal one was pretty good. I will say that now they have a Nautilus one, and it is so smooth. It is amazing.
Is it the one that Mike used to have?
I don't know about that. All I know is they got this one more recently, and it's so smooth. It's better than the other one.
Nice.
Like it's just, the other one felt a little weird on my legs.
Yeah.
And I had like a little weird quad thing for a little bit, which like I took a deload week and an active rest week before I started contest prep, and I've had no issues ever since. So that worked.
That Arsenal one's heavy.
It is heavy. It's heavy, and it's real harsh, like real harsh angles.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I see people loading that one up at my gym. I'm like very skeptical. Like
yeah, but then they also have like the thickness gray band on the back of it that like
of a gray band.
Takes
they do this thing where they
off from the second you unrack.
They put the yoga block under them and then do like half reps. Anyway.
Yeah.
Sweet. Nick, I think it really does show though that time off. It does show the evolution of RP and kind of how good, you've all gotten really. Like you go from, maybe not placing at a show to winning a show. And you had the assistance of, Mike and Jared, who have more competitive experience, have helped more people as well. So I think that's really cool. I just wanted to highlight that. But also, we were talking about this before, how maybe you lay a little bit more on the bro side of things. Could you maybe talk about like the experience of having them kind of guide you and just the prep process as well?
Yeah. So I think there's people always like to make things into camps. And on one side, you've got like the, sort of skinny nerd that's all about like evidence and research and all that. And, there's definitely a role for that, right? Like if you're in bodybuilding, you want to do every single thing in your power to optimize your workouts, your recovery, your results, right? You do everything. And it's funny because I would joke with Jared and like, the way he sort of presents things sometimes and what he sends or whatever is like, not the most, I don't know, pretty looking stuff. But I'm like, when you're a bodybuilder, it doesn't care what it looks like. It literally doesn't fucking matter. He could be like, hey, the day before the show, you're going to drink horse piss. And you'd be like, that sounds weird, but like, okay, fine, Jared, like you're the man, like you've turned people pro, like fine. Okay. Where do I get horse piss? Right. It's like, And so I always tell him, I'm like, Jared, you just give me the plan and I will execute it. I don't need to necessarily understand all the nuances behind everything. I'm like, I trust you. He's done it. He's turned what? How many people pro? 20, 30, 40, right? Like the list is quite long at this point. So I'm like, I don't want to have to stress and worry about all that. And like, that's where I come in, right? So you got someone like Mike, you got someone like Jared. These guys are the scientists. They love thinking. And actually, what's really interesting is neither of those guys necessarily have a coach. I know Jared sort of helps Mike a little bit, but like Jared sort of coaches himself. I can't help but wonder if Jared had someone that he could really trust and turn things over to, would that make it easier for him? Because I personally think it would, because then you don't have to worry about yourself. Because I could never coach myself, especially at the end when it comes to all the peaking stuff. And like, I'm not going to do that. I could probably very easily justify or talk myself into 50 different manipulations that probably wouldn't help, right? Like, it's weird coaching yourself. So I just like having the plan. I just like being able to execute. And like, it's funny, when Mike and I do the RP podcast, he can really get into the nitty gritty, all the nuance. And I'm just like, okay, here's the TLDR. You just said all this stuff. So what you're saying is at the end of the day, just do X, Y, and Z. And like, that's how I like to approach things is I trust Mike. I trust Jared. I've been around them a long time. I've known Mike for, gee whiz, I don't know, like over 15 years now. So I have full trust in those guys that they know what they're doing. Again, not that they're always right on every single thing, because of course not. No one ever is. But that's why I just want to go out and execute. Because like I don't want to have to spend all the time. Like I have my mental bandwidth can be spent doing other things. Running operations of RP or whatever it is. So like let those guys do their thing, and then I just go out and execute the plan that they have in place. And that's sort of how I view it. Is that like middle ground? Because I'm definitely not in the camp of just train hard, whatever like that. Like you don't think about it. No, like I want a good solid plan, but I don't want to spend hours looking at all these minute details and all that, because sometimes I see these like 150, 160 pound guys and they're like, well, like I'm not at 3 RIR. I might actually be at 2 IR. Like, is it going to throw off the algorithm? I'm going to be like, I don't know the difference. Right. And I've been training for 20 years. I can't fucking tell if I'm 3 or 2 RIR. In fact, like I'm probably more conservative, right? Because like sometimes I'll send a video and like, dude, it feels hard as shit in the moment. I'm sure you guys know that. You're like, oh, dude, that was like 1 RIR. And then you watch the video and you're like, fuck, okay, that was probably like 4 RIR.
Especially with legs. Yeah. Especially with legs.
100%. Yeah. And so like one, it helps probably have like a training partner to push you a little bit. And so ever since the last show, I started going to this gym to train legs, and I've got like a training partner, 1 or 2 training partners. So like that does help a little bit. But yeah, it's like, just give me the plan, let me go and do it. And I don't need to worry so much about the, little minutia stuff, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's
So
important. I think.
So Nick, you never question. They just go. They just tell you what to do. You just do it. Do you ever have discourse with them, or you're like, why? I will execute, but like, why did you do that? Or like, what's the reasoning? Do you ever do that or no?
A little bit. Yeah. And I mean, definitely a little bit, Jared will give some feedback or whatever. He's like, hey, like you ready to, drop your carbs to this? And I'll be like, Jared probably always thought that I was doing like 14K steps a day. I'm like, that's a good amount. But for me, like once we decided to do the universe about a month beforehand, I was doing a call with a opposing guy, and Jared happened to be there with him. And I was like, Jared, like just realistically, like, you think I got a shot? And he's like, yeah, I think you got a shot. He's like, worst case, you'll be in front of essentially the same people. So you'll come back and you'll have 2 or 3 weeks to get ready. So he's like, worst case, you just get more experience. And like, I dialed it up a notch from there. Jared's like, okay, like I forget what my carbs were at the time, maybe 200 a day, something like that. He's like, all right, you're going to go to 150. And like in my head, I was like, all right, this is basically full send time. I was using semaglutide, which, oh my God, was the only probably way that I made it through it. I could have made it through it, but it would have been miserable. I'd have been drinking like a fucking 24 pack of diet soda a day. Like I could have done it, but it would have just been intense. So that really helped. But yeah, dude, I was doing, I didn't tell Jared that I'm like, hey, I'm probably doing like 16, 17K steps a day. I was because I didn't want him to be like, no, you should not do that.
Pull
Or
back, yeah.
Nick, I feel like that's very common. You're not the only competitor that I know that competes at a high level that has done shit like that, where
Turn it
they'll
up a
be
little
close
bit.
to the end and they won't tell their coach that they're like, oh, we have an extra stair meal session that we're not sharing, or
Yeah.
like that
I had
extra
a-
meal, we're actually only eating half of it.
I
Like
had a
it's
guy
a
do
thing.
this recently.
I we think we've all done it ourselves.
Yeah, likewise.
And I tell you what, the mindset, listen, I'm not going to say I'm right or wrong, whatever, but I guess for me, like I knew in the fall show, if you had asked me, like, how much did you put into that? Like, how much more could you have done? I'd have been like, you know what? I'm probably close to 95%. Like, damn near that was about as hard as I could have pushed it. Going into the Universal last month, I was probably at like 98%. And I was like, you know, if I'm going through all this, I know like, you know, my wife's helping out more with the kids and all that. Like, I'm not gonna not give my fucking, I don't want to say 100% because 100% is really, really hard to like truly give. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, sure. Like I could have probably always done another rep or so here or there in the gym. So like, it's really hard to say you could have done 100%. But I was like, you know what? If I'm doing this, I'm going to fucking do it. And I'm going to try my hardest. And I feel like I tried pretty damn hard. I mean, the last week before peak, I did something like 120,000 steps or something like that. Like it was pretty stupid, but I was like, you know what? I just want to feel like I came in about as prepared as I could have been. So like something like that. You know, it's not like I shared with Jared like that. He probably thought I was doing, 14, would have been about 98, 100K for the week. But yeah, it just was like,
Does
it's
he
full
know
send
now?
time. I mean, I shared it on Instagram. I don't know how much. Dude, I'm sure that does happen all the time. I mean, it's not like I was under eating, but I will say there was definitely some meals when semaglutide was fairly high that, and I remember because like my kids and my wife were down in Florida at like Legoland or whatever, something like that. And like the timing worked out perfectly because I was about 3 weeks out. So, you're just in that pretty just shitty zone at that point.
Yeah.
Like my mom and sister were there, just for the record. I want people to think that like I sent, my family. They were there to help.
Yeah,
No.
I
Guys are
literally
going
just
to
had
Disneyland.
like a vision. I literally just had a vision of like kids are at Legoland, fucking bitches. I'm squatting out here trying to win a bodybuilding show. You guys are looking at Legos, Jack Sparrow. What the hell is this? It's funny.
Next
My
one,
wife
bought
asked
the
me, she's like,
tickets.
hey, listen, I was like, she was like, hey, like, is it okay? Like, if we go, the kids really want to go. I'm like, awesome. I like, normally I'd be like hemming and hawing about like costs. I'd be like, I don't know. Like, I was like, yes, that sounds great. I'm like, whatever you want, do it. Yep, great, go. There were times that week that I had a hard time. Like, normally I would be going crazy on the fruits and veggies to like feel full. Dude, I would like do a tiny amount of broccoli just to like say that I had some veggies, and I'm just like, okay, I'm good, which was wild because I'm like, oh my God, I'm under 2,000 calories. I'm having a hard time eating it. And I know how many steps I'm doing. I know that I'm training. It's like, this shit is damn near magic.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
Was that weird
So
to you?
say.
Like, I mean, this is when you'd normally be starving.
It was very weird. And I will say, normally I kind of hit that point where sleep will start to really feel like crap.
Yeah, I had this experience.
It was not that bad because I would not wake up starving hungry at like 3 or 4 in the morning. I would still wake up, but I could fall back asleep till, like whatever, 6 or something like that. And like, it was pretty consistently at about like 7 hours of sleep. Weirdly enough, my sleep has been worse since the show than it was before. So whatever that means.
That's weird.
Yeah, that was one of my arguments for it. I had some pushback because I had said I used it for my contest prep. And obviously it comes from the people who are like, you need to suffer and it's a necessary part of bodybuilding. Right. I'm like, that's complete bullshit. I don't know where you're getting that from. But I think
totally. I'm like, I am suffering. Don't get me wrong, folks. I got no energy. I'm suffering here.
Oh man,
yeah, that's really weird.
Like that's a challenge in itself. I have to like psych myself up to do stuff like that.
Right.
Get out of my car.
You're like, you have to pee and you're just like thinking like, how far is the toilet? How bad do I need to pee?
Yeah, exactly.
Around here.
That doesn't
go away. How bad would it be if I pissed my pants? Like,
yeah.
Have you heard Stan Efferding's story about when he was training for his pro card?
No, please tell me though. Oh god.
He had a trash can next to his bed, so he wouldn't lose any sleep, and he'd turn over and pee into the trash can and then go back to sleep. And he said he left it one morning, he forgot to dump it in the toilet, and the maid found it, and he said he like never felt so bad in his life. It's like because it was cleaned out when he got there. She's like, what the hell is this guy doing?
Dude, people ever ask me like, what do you think about bodybuilding? Would you ever recommend it? I'm like, no, I don't recommend it for anyone. Like, the people that do it are all crazy. Oh man. I'm sure I can only imagine some of the crazy stories that people have, like
oh yeah,
doing shit.
Oof. I mean, Nick, now that you've gone through it, I'm sure that you can empathize with a lot of these so-called crazy stories that maybe 5-10 years ago you'd be like, oh, you're nuts, how could they do that? And now that you've gone through it, you're like, well, fuck, I'm a weirdo because now I do understand how they do that. I don't condone it, but I get it.
Yeah.
Yes. What's really interesting is like now that I'm really into bodybuilding, I'll see other sports and I'm just like, oh, I don't know. It's like whatever. But then like there was a time where I don't want to say that I really got into CrossFit, but I was definitely training it a little bit. And I remember thinking I'd look over at like those hardcore bodybuilders and I'd be like, what are they doing? Like here I am, like it's just funny. Like when you're in that zone or in that mindset, you're just like so focused on that you see other things. And I think this is how like those camps or like that divergence of, bodybuilding versus CrossFit versus weightlifting versus powerlifting. I think that's how that happens because you're just like, yes, I do this. Everything else is stupid. Everyone else is stupid. And then you're like, give it a couple years. You might actually be in one of those other things. And then you're going to look back and think, oh man, I was an idiot for thinking that. So that's kind of where I'm at on all that. People want to lift, like CrossFit's cool, weightlifting's cool, powerlifting's cool, bodybuilding. I just happen to be in it right now. So that's cool. But yeah, bodybuilding's, I think, the hardest one for sure.
100%.
Because you suffer just 100% of the time. Like I know I've been around like elite CrossFitters, Froning and all those guys. Don't get me wrong, like they train hard. They train for long times. I've seen it. My God, I can't do 90% of that stuff. Like when you're done and after, they go eat and they eat very well. Lots of carbs. Many carbs. Nothing can really ever replace that feeling when you do train hard or a hard leg training session, but then those carbs are just super low and you got a ton of steps to do, like at night or whatever. Like, damn, there's no way around that. That shit just sucks. No, you can't dress that up in any other way. It's just like that's a big old spoonful of suck just waiting for you.
Yeah, because they're eating for performance and you're eating for performance, but there's a fine line you're walking of like performance, but also let's get this body fat off, which is like slowly degrading your performance over time. So it's definitely challenging for sure. 100%. I think I used to think very similar. I think the one thing that maybe it's not harder, but I would just say fuck that is I read David Goggins' book. I don't know if you've read this one, Nick.
Can't Hurt Me. Or
Can't Hurt Me. Yeah, I haven't read the newer one.
Yeah,
yet. But he talks about the what is it? It's the marathon. The what do they call the extreme marathon?
Ultra
marathons. Yeah, I would never ever want to do that in my life.
I'll go ahead and throw it out there. Endurance athletes are some of the most badass athletes on the planet because holy shit.
Oh, he paused right there.
It's just there's no way I could do that.
Dramatic pause.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, if you listen to Goggins too, he runs on like broken shins and he's just another breed.
Real quick, just on that topic, if you want to read a crazy story, check out the Iron Cowboy. He did 50 triathlons in all 50 states in 50 days.
Yeah, there's a video of it. There's a really good video on YouTube about it, actually.
Yeah, and he was like number 48, and he had a bike crash, and like broke his shin, broke his foot, and still finished the rest.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about that. broken shin. I'm like, stubbed toe. I'm like, oh man, I don't know if I can do my
Dude, I
steps
feel
today.
like Trevor, I feel like that's the kind of shit that you watch during a bodybuilding prep, and it goes either way. Like on the one hand, it could give you a wellspring of motivation, but on the other hand, depending if it's like a good day, bad day for you, you're like, yeah, but that motherfucker's not jacked. He's not doing what I'm doing, so it's not the same.
Yeah.
Can't hurt me is my like prep book. When I'm like in the depths of prep, I'm like, all right, if this guy can handle this, then I can handle a bodybuilding prep.
In the
Yeah.
towards the tail end of bodybuilding prep, it's like I like to read. Dude, I can't read. I can't like sit down and read books. I'm just like, fuck. Especially, or even if I do read, it has to switch from like something where I'm trying to learn and apply it to just like, I don't know, history, or like something like a Goggins book where like
I'm with
this
you.
is just purely for fun and entertainment. But I gotta save the little brain power that I have to like actually doing a little bit of work when it's required. It's funny because then I kind of like get out of that habit, and then like after I start eating more, I'm like I almost have to force myself to get back in the habit because I just stopped doing it for a while. You know, for the last, I don't know, month or so before a show. It's just like,
Yeah,
Nick, at what point did you notice that your productivity from work came down, if at all? Because obviously the start of prep, I'm sure you were fine. Was it the last month? Was it the last 2 months? Or maybe it was more.
in my head, I usually plan on like the last month being really just sucky all around, and I'll like definitely try to like scale back like how much. But what's really interesting, actually, that's a really good point because if I have work calls and if I'm able to like move and walk around, I actually feel way better. It's the
Sure.
sitting around on Zoom calls and stuff like that, where if I do that and the energy is just really low, I have to like force myself to stand up. And then it's like you guys said, you're like, oh my God. Because I look down at my step counter and I'm like, oh, fuck, like I have so much to do. But if I'm walking around and talking, dude, I have more energy actually, which is really weird. Sounds totally backwards. And then I feel better. And so I actually try to schedule a little bit more of that stuff, like in the afternoons when I know I'm going to hit those periods. Like for me, like early afternoon, I'm just like, so if I schedule some calls like that, usually that helps get me through it. But yeah, always in my head with the way I'm planning things is like beginning of prep, no big deal. You know, the middle, usually not that bad. Last month in my head, I'm just like, this is going to suck. There's no way around it. Just do what you got to do. And then like, because you know, again, periodization, I would, you know, there's no reason to crush a ton of caffeine at the beginning of prep, right? There's no reason to be doing crazy number of steps and all that stuff. So in my head, I'm like, all right, save it for when I really need it. Save it for when I really need it. Save it for when I really need it. And I kind of just hit that last month and I'm like, you know what? Yeah. Do I want an extra diet soda? Like, fuck it. Interestingly enough, semaglutide didn't need diet soda very much. In fact, I would have one and I'd just like carbonation would actually just make me, dude. There were a couple days where I'm like, I can't drink diet soda.
Yeah.
I want nothing to do with
That's
it.
weird.
That carbonated
It's pretty wild.
Monster, I don't know if like it's slightly less carbonated, doesn't really bother me at all. I would have a diet soda, like a Diet Coke, a can of Diet Coke, and I would make this is terrible. Like I can't do this. I would feel like crap for like 3 hours afterwards. And it wasn't until I finally like started to move around and walk a little bit that I would slightly feel better. But interesting stuff.
So Nick, with Ozempic, did you find that you needed to wig out on caffeine or not even? Like, did you not even have caffeine at the end
Oh, I always
because
had
you had Ozempic?
I always had caffeine, but I definitely don't think I used as much as the last prep in the fall. So for me, it's like, man, semaglutide is this really interesting thing because, well, like some of your other cravings aren't as intense. Which, like, I read a really interesting article, I think from like Brad Stolberg and his partner, but they were talking about. I think it's starting to hit the mainstream. It's like, you know, Ozempic, Wegovy, semaglutide is, I don't know, kind of all one and the same to me. But that's what they're saying. Like it's helping people, you know, like overcome all sorts of weird what not weird, I don't know why I'm saying weird, but cravings, you know, like alcohol, food, drug addiction.
Yeah. It's wild.
Dude, that's crazy.
Yeah, something with the reward system. I don't know. I haven't read that article yet, but I saw the headline.
Real interesting side note, because right now I'm kind of like scaling it back a little bit. Like I just had I took a shot on Sunday. Today's Tuesday. And Sunday afternoon, I was out with my kids. I took them out, and we were grocery shopping. And I wanted to buy every single thing in the store. No joke. Like the hunger was like out of this world because I hadn't taken a shot in a full week.
Yeah.
And then so I took the shot on Sunday, and then like I'm sitting around last night, and I was like, huh, I don't really feel that need to like eat a bunch of junk food.
Yeah.
Because that's the fine line that I'm trying to walk right now, because we had scheduled a photo shoot. So like Mike, me, Jared, even Crystal for like after Masters Nationals. And so I've had this 3-week period here. Well, your post show, we technically want a pro card. Like, fuck it,
Not easy.
whatever.
You're not in a good spot. Like, it's not easy.
It's not easy. I've kept the semaglutide in just so I wouldn't go too crazy, and I feel like I haven't gone too crazy because I went fairly ham like last fall, about a week after my wife and I went to like a couple. I kind of like I did too much of the all you can eat stuff. That's a bad idea,
And they're done.
just a real bad idea.
All you can eat.
Yeah. I mean, bro, when you're coming off a show and like all you can eat is just a bad idea. I wouldn't recommend that, because you're full, but you can't stop eating. You're like,
Can't stop. It's real wild. You're like sick, but you just keep going.
Yeah, I had to like
100%.
After USA's, I had to just say, all right, we're just got to stop it here, because I've done that before. I'm like, just I can keep ordering, but I know that I'm not going to feel great.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I remember being at a buffet in Vegas, and like, Jared was there at the time. Charlie was there. Like, we had a bunch of like the RP Transformation Challenge winners. Like, they were all there. Like, everyone had stopped eating, but I was like, well, but there was like more food up there, and like, I want a little bit more. And people were like, oh my God, dude, is that like your 4th or 5th plate? And I'm like, but like, I don't, and I was already full. But I just
Wait, was that anyone's first time meeting you? I hope that was your first impression. That is amazing. They're like, Nick has an eating disorder, everyone. We don't need to be around him.
Dude, absolutely. Like all the RP folks that had flown in for the challenge or whatever. David Martin. Yeah. First time I'd ever met him too. He was probably like, oh my God, like this guy.
Like, dude's a psycho.
How is he so
totally?
Yeah.
So don't do that. That's what I've been trying to sort of manage right now. Also, the really interesting thing too is the semaglutide is really interesting because I knew that I had a big carb up coming for the show. And so I tried to plan it in my head, whereas I want to say like the last shot that I took was about 10 days before the show, because I wanted to do it like a week before I started, because I started carbing up on Thursday. And that, I will say, worked beautifully because I think I scaled down the dosage a little bit. I had no problem eating all the carbs that I needed to. It's like 900 grams of carbs on that Thursday and like 600 on Friday. Dude, end of day Thursday, I was like hungry. I was like, all right, like, let's keep this show going, Jared. You want to send me some more carbs? You're good. So, but it's a tricky.
I was going to say I made the opposite. I made that mistake.
Yeah, Dylan has this experience with that.
Yeah, it was horrible.
Did you cut it too close?
I just didn't cut it. I was getting from a generic source, and this is before other people had vouched for some of these peptides. And I was like, I was on a pretty 1,500 calorie deficit. So I was like, I'm not sure how much this works. Maybe it's not that effective. Like, I imagine now I would have been so hungry without it, like, because I was hungry through the 1,500 calorie deficit. And I was like, and I didn't pull it. And it was loading was the first day or two. I was like, I feel kind of weird. And then I got to like a day or two out, and I was on the toilet all night. It was horrible.
God.
So yeah, that was a good decision there.
It's a fine line to walk.
Yeah.
It's been really interesting and sort of just trying to kind of navigate that. And so I think I'm in like a pretty low dose right now, and I might have probably just taken the last one on Sunday. Like, I think I'll probably be good, but I feel like I still have some. So if I really get in a bad place, I'll be like, because it works. It works pretty quick too. Like next day, I think you notice. I don't know about you guys, but like I noticed stuff the next day. It's like yesterday, I was like, I mean, I ate like all my normal clean food, but it's not, again, I wasn't sitting around at night just being like, I wonder if I can have like a couple protein bars or something like that, which is sick, right? Like I'm fucking dreaming about protein bars. That's when you know stuff's messed up and you're like, but dude, they make some good ass protein bars nowadays.
Jimmy is a protein bar connoisseur.
Yeah, Nick, but we all acknowledge that you're in the situation that you're in. You would not be saying that sentence to me if you were not in the situation that you're in. And I acknowledge that. I'm sure you know that too. Like protein bars are amazing right now. In 3 months, you're not going to be saying.
Yeah.
Yes and no. I'll only give slight tiny pushback to that. I like protein bars.
You too.
I like RTD shakes. I literally have one every single day.
I mean, RTD shakes taste like chocolate milk. That's not fair. Like for sure, I'll give you that. That one's
because Mike always tries making that claim of like, if you talk to a normal person and you're like, this is good, they're gonna think it's complete dog shit. Dude,
I agree with him. Yeah.
Anabar, the protein bar. Mark Lobliner was at Mike's house, and so I caught him on the tail end before he was leaving. He's got a bar called like the Outright, I think.
Yeah,
Outright bar. Okay, so a couple caveats on that. So those are candy bars that happen to have some protein, so they taste pretty good. I mean, you look at the macros, you're like, okay, yes, this is not a protein bar. This is a candy bar that has some protein. But like, I guess, I'm sure there's a market for that. People want to feel like they have some protein or whatever. Like I'm eating those on a contest prep, I can assure you that. But dude, hero bars, I genuinely like them. I would eat those suckers on a mass and probably have no issue with it. Maybe not the tail end of a mass, but
Nick, you've had the Bear Bells cookies and cream and the cookie dough.
The cookies and cream one, yes. The white
very
one,
good.
Big
Yeah, white and blue.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That one's very good. And then the Fit Crunch peanut butter and jelly to me is god tier. It's a candy bar, but it's god tier.
It's a candy bar. Yes, it's a candy bar. Yep. Okay. I went to Costco and I bought some. Yeah.
Oh, so
they had the peanut butter and jelly at Costco?
No, I think they had like the just peanut butter. Sorry.
I'm going
to Costco right now.
Yeah. It's like, what?
What's the other one? After the last prep, I actually went on Amazon and paid an outrageous amount for the Snickers high protein bars.
Yeah.
Dude, it was like at least $40 for a pack of 12.
Do you love them like Mike does or no?
I think they're very good. I don't know if I'd say that I love them, but I was like, okay, I know that I have an issue when I'm spending like $45, probably with shipping or whatever, like a fucking box of protein bars. Like Mike says, Crystal says too, that you can get them in the UK. I've never been to Europe. I've never been to London before. I'm going in September.
Really? Yeah.
If I find them, I don't know how it works with customs, but I'm going to ask some questions. I'm trying to bring back multiple.
Probably throw this in your bag, no problem.
Nick, you can do it. They have a cool protein bar scene in London. They do have them. They're more prevalent. They're easier to find in London versus here. And there are some other candy bar protein bars in London too. You'll see. Mike is obsessed with the protein bar scene in the UK. I'm sure he's told you that.
Mike has one of the most interesting diets for a bodybuilder I've ever seen in my life, because I was just there. He's a week out. We went to Panda Express. Now again, he got chicken teriyaki with just white rice, but I'm just like, I'm not touching that shit at a week out. I'm probably not touching that
Neither
shit
am I.
4 weeks out. Like,
no.
Yeah, no, God, no. I'd be getting like 5 orders by the time I left.
Yeah, he got like the triple plate with just chicken teriyaki and white rice, which, all right, respect. Like, it's pretty clean, but still, like, and then 3 protein bars before he goes to bed. I'm just like,
such a weird diet.
So whenever he posts that he eats multiple protein bars in one sitting, and they're not like the pure protein bars, I'm like, how can you handle that much fiber in one sitting?
I've done that for like 2 weeks. Every night I have 2 to 3 protein bars for my last meal, and it's like the Costco brand ones.
Yeah, I can't. Like if like I'm 60, gonna have one of those,
like 45 to 60.
If I'm gonna have one of those fibrous protein bars, I'm gonna like have it with like a low fat milk or a protein shake or some deli meat that's just like lean protein in itself, because I'm not taking on 20 grams of fiber in one sitting. Like I'm not crazy. I want to live.
Nah, it's fine. I'm already married. She can't go anywhere.
I think that some people just have like iron stomachs.
Yeah.
Trevor, Mike, mostly myself, because I can have a couple protein bars. Shoot, what day was it? Yeah, I feel like, oh, it was when I was coming home actually from Mike's. So I had a Fit Crunch on the airplane. And then I'm driving home and I'm like, man, I'm hungry. It's like almost 10 o'clock at night. So it was a later one. And I had 3 protein bars in my bag. One was an outright bar, the other was a hero bar, and then there was one other one. I forget what it was. Oh, an Anabar one. So, but like not a ton of fiber in those. I was like, dude, I probably just had like 40, 50 grams of fat in that one meal. Because the outright has 16, the Anabar has like 15, the hero bar has, like whatever, 8 or 10. But I had no issues with it at all. Like, I think some people just have it. And again, like if you are used to eating them, I think that does help. Like I said, if you have them every day, I think you become accustomed to it. Because, like, dude, my wife, if she had like one of those, like, forget about it. She would not be in a good place for many days. But here I am eating like three or four in a day, and I'm like, well,
especially some of the ones with sugar alcohols for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I definitely don't want to be eating those when I'm getting on the plane.
Right. Blowing up the toilet in the middle of the flight.
Some of the stories Mike has,
oh god, I don't.
Next time you see him, ask him about some of the flights he's been on, like when they were back doing the seminar scene. Like,
oh god,
no.
If I was ever on one of those planes, I would be very upset with Mike.
Oh, no.
Very upset. Like he almost led to like a plane takeover on one. People were getting real upset with him. So
like this is worse than when the raccoon got in the copier.
Anchorman. Anchorman. I love it.
That is Anchorman. Of course it is.
Nick, it smells like burnt hair.
Yeah.
Or was it like Nick, we'll get you out of here, but one last question. You had the app release in the middle of this prep. How did that go, and how was the app going so far? And then kind of end with kind of plug in the app and stuff like that.
So we had learned so much from all the mistakes that we made on the diet app that this was a very good launch for us. For example, we always thought that people wanted the RP recommendations, and like that's what people were really paying for, right? Like you want RP's recommendations. And we sort of quickly learned that a lot of people, some people did want that with the diet app, but people wanted more flexibility to do all sorts of different things that they want to do. And so like the hypertrophy app was built with that in mind, where you can use the RP recommendations, absolutely, but you can basically change anything you want. Move exercises around, add sets, delete sets, change your reps. Like it just gives a RIR target. And so we kind of built it with that in mind. We had a much more clear understanding of like who our target market was. Actually, shout out to Trevor, because he helped me a lot with sort of figuring that out, because it's like very similar to Team Full ROM folks. And so like that was super helpful. Like it was very, very clear of like people coming in from YouTube, Team Full ROM, hypertrophy app. Like we very much understand like who those people are now. Diet app is a little bit more up in the air on that, just because it seems like there's probably some like physique athletes, but there's also CrossFitters in there too, and it's just a bit more.
I feel like nutrition always is, right? Nutrition is like always a little bit more like amorphous. You're like, am I talking to bodybuilders? But it's not. But it does apply. But it's like, yeah, yep. I get that.
Yep. But people that train like this, like, I mean, it's just part of like who we are and what we do. Like we're not going to stop training. Whereas like diets. So yeah, we just learned so much from all the mistakes that we'd made in like the diet app that it was a pretty easy, smooth release. And we released it on 5/23, so it was still like a good month or so. And I don't even think at the time I was planning on doing the universe. So like I wasn't like mental bandwidth. I was still in a good spot and all that. But we released it. Obviously, we had been testing it internally a bunch. Like I'd already been using it for a couple months myself. It's like this is great. Like I don't have to carry my notebook, anything like that around. And then we had a pretty good strategy that we'll probably replicate for any other like big releases. We, for free, gave it to all the Team Full ROM people for a couple of weeks to use. They gave like tons of good feedback and all that, which is really, really helpful. So that was out for like 2-3 weeks. Fixed a lot of little things like that before we even released to like not even the general public, but like a very, you know, subset of people that like had said, "Hey, I'm interested in hypertrophy app." So, and again, we released it as a beta. So it was very smooth because we had like good marketing. It's like, hey, this is what it's going to be. It's already been tested, but like it's a beta. Here we are. This is people that had basically been asking for an app like that for a really long time, and we had a really good like lead up to it of just like Mike, Jared, kind of teasing it like, hey, this is what it is, this is what it looks like, and all that. So just went very well. We just learned a lot from all the stupid stuff we had done before that didn't work so well.
Yeah.
Nick, have you noticed that since RP has built a significant following on YouTube, you always had Instagram and you kind of always had Facebook too, but now that you've had such a following on YouTube, that when you launch products, is it so much easier? Like when you say, I'm launching to the general audience, technically, yes, but also not really, because you have such a flywheel of a following across so many platforms that it's like, if you're only able to monetize the people that you already have, like your niche is good. Like you don't need any more than your niche. Do you understand what I'm getting at or no?
Yeah, I would say that we didn't have some of the back end infrastructure and things like that in place before, whereas now we've got a lot better back end infrastructure to better support all that. And I think for many different reasons, like one, we had to kind of learn diet especially is just kind of a higher churn type thing because people don't want to diet all the time. People that train are probably going to stick around for longer. Just getting more clear on like who the target demographic is and just making sure the messaging is dialed in pretty well for them. Just having more of like a clear overall marketing strategy versus I think before it's almost like it's kind of like, oh hey, social media, boom, just throw everyone to the website and then you kind of just hope for the best or whatever. So there was no like some of that very clear back end infrastructure, KPIs, tracking, all that stuff. Whereas like now we're much more aligned and in tune with all that. But yeah, the YouTube thing is really interesting because you're just, if you guys follow Hormozy, talks a lot about just like the power of just kind of like being famous. And I
Yeah,
think we're kind of seeing that with Mike, and that
yeah.
people just love Mike so much that they're just they want to kind of either give back or support him because of all the value that he's given out for literally years. Because remember, the YouTube channel we really started to push with Mike leading that when COVID hit. So like
Yeah.
2020, so here we are about 3 years later, it's like really starting to pay off. The YouTube trajectory right now is just, I've never seen anything like it. Because again, I've not been around like other huge like channels or whatever, but from what I've seen, even having a very large Instagram, and I kind of helped build that up along the way. Even at its heyday when Instagram was really booming, like it's like nothing compared to what YouTube is doing right now, because they have just such an interesting model around it where like they pay you to create content. It's amazing. Like what
And
a
you're
wonderful concept.
giving to your audience too, which they're like, wow, look at all this free stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Let me buy your app.
I can't poke holes in like YouTube/Google. It's brilliant. And but because you don't have that on Facebook and Instagram, you got to pay for all that essentially to get those eyeballs. YouTube is the complete opposite. They're like, no, we'll actually pay you. You keep
Yeah.
keep
Nick,
creating.
have you noticed that you've been able, fortunately, to cut down on marketing costs a lot because of that? Because it's all organic now, or not really?
Um, I don't want to say we've been cutting back because we probably just didn't
Or maybe it's just
have.
different.
It's different, and just trying to really fine tune things now of like making sure that we can have a much better understanding of, oh hey, if we put $1 in here, can we actually track to make sure that we're getting that back? And or now that like YouTube is doing better, so like that actually brings in more revenue by itself. So we're actually just taking a lot of that and trying to put it back into it. Like Scott the video guy was only one guy and he's mostly largely done it all himself, but like now he's got another guy that's helping edit videos. He's got like a couple people that literally just help do thumbnails, which is like wild to think about.
Yeah.
But like that's all they do is just create thumbnails. And so like, he's learning a lot about all the analytics on that, because up until recently, or at least from kind of secondhand from Mike and Scott, they had a pretty good understanding of how YouTube worked, but they started chatting with some other bigger name folks that have been around the game and understand the analytics and all that. It's like now they've just really kind of, I don't want to say crack the code, but understand it a little bit more. And
Yeah, I can see that.
It's crazy right now.
Yeah, we just passed over 500,000 on your YouTube, right?
Wow,
Bro,
you're almost at 600, I think.
Really?
it's going to be at 600 by the end of this week.
That's insane.
Okay,
It's next level. I've
A
not
million?
seen anything like it before.
1 million. We need
A
a Mike
million?
Lamborghini. We need a Mike Lamborghini video. Is what we need.
We hit 1 million on YouTube. I might pay to rent Mike a Lamborghini for a day.
What's this? What I'm saying? We need to do
I
that.
just want to see.
It's so funny.
Just pay so we can see Mike try to get in one. That's all.
Yes. Fair
He
enough.
doesn't have to drive it. If he just gets in one, that'll be a show in and of itself.
The million mark, like this seems crazy, but it depends on how things go. Of course, obviously, no one can
Yes,
predict
yes.
the future.
Well,
YouTube could shut down tomorrow or something. Who knows? But
Nick, I gotta
it's
say,
not that far off.
no, I gotta say, you said that, maybe it was, I was listening to some other podcasts you had done, and maybe it was by chance that you guys hit the social media, and that was in part due to your success. But when you can replicate that multiple times, I don't think there's a chance component. I think that it's obviously, this wasn't a good time for YouTube per se. You guys just executed, put out videos consistently, and it's not like it's the showing of how good of a company you guys are and how you've been able to execute on that. I don't think it's just luck at this point.
Well, dude, thank you so much. I think I think I know which one you're talking about, but I kind of said along the lines of like we rode that initial wave of like Instagram and all that. That so obviously we were doing some things right, but
Yeah,
again, like there wasn't the full understanding on the back end of how it all worked and sort of linked together and all that. And it was almost, I say luck, but and it worked until it didn't, right? And then like everything changed on Instagram, and then it was like, big slap to the face, and they're like, oh, okay, well now what do we do? And we kind of had to rethink all this. And so then some of those painful learning lessons, those prices were paid, over the last couple of years to now, like we actually do understand a little bit better. So now when this surge on YouTube happens, it's like we're better able to capitalize on it versus just, dumb luck of like, oh, hey, here comes like all these new eyeballs. And then like, just by chance, some amount of people are going to buy stuff or whatever. Like, no, there's now like much more clear understanding on the back end. So yeah, it's, man, you're going to make tons of mistakes and, hopefully you'll learn along the way. But yeah, dude, Mike's great. Mike's he's an educator, but he's also an entertainer, and that's what people want. There's a reason that people like him. So I remember sitting in one of his classes way back in the day at University of Central Missouri, and like I remember college, you just get through classes basically. But dude, all of his students were engaged. They were laughing and joking, and Mike was making it fun and all this. And I told him back then, I'm like, dude, like, you need to figure out how to do this for more people, because like you're sort of squandering yourself here, teaching a class of 30 people where he can go make videos now and hundreds of thousands of people see him. It's really awesome.
Yeah, that's what drew me in. I mean, that's around COVID time. I remember I was watching some video, someone mentioned like, oh, Mike, he's squats really deep and he's got big quads, and I was like, oh, let me listen to him. And then I listened to Revive and I was like, this makes sense to me. Like that's where sports science clicked.
Yeah.
And then I just dove into it after that. So
totally. Mike has the one of the rare gifts where he can take complex ideas and sort of simplify them down to essentially anyone can understand them
and analogize them in an understandable way.
Sure. And what's amazing, Nick, is that he lets you be you. Like you guys are partners, equal partners, as far as I know. And he can run the show and you can be in the shadows unbothered. And yeah, you can do your thing, pop out whenever, but like respectfully, like if nobody heard from you, wouldn't matter. And that's amazing. I know that suits your personality like super well. That's just awesome that you guys can work that way. You know what I mean? Because Mike is a big personality. He's very smart, he's very intelligent, he's very like out there. And you're totally cool with like, it's all right, I'll just be in the back, just like running shit as well, but you just don't need to know who I am.
Oh, no, it's totally. So I think like a lot of times people are trying to like get a business or something going like that, but then they're completely by themselves. And because I've started seeing this with my wife, because she's been trying to do stuff outside of fitness, and it's just really hard. And I have to remind her, I'm like, well, you're also doing this by yourself. So every single aspect of business, like you have to do, and you have to be good at. Whereas like again, I feel like most I don't know off the top of my head, like an Apple, right? You've got Steve Jobs and you've got Wozniak, right? Or you've got Bill Gates and Paul Allen, right? It's like usually there's a couple people, and that's obviously not by luck. Like different people have different skills, and so you have to utilize that. Like if it was just Mike, like the things that he's good at, I'm not good at. And some of the things that I'm better at, well, he's not good at. For example, if he was in charge of like having to respond to people on Slack and emails and all this stuff, like, forget about it. People are going to be like, I never fucking hear from RP. Like they're, trying to steal my money. So always just been, I'm like, okay, well, I'm very like type A, like, let me go do all that stuff. That's totally fine. And so, yeah, we just complement each other's skill set, and dude, yeah, like it's worked beautifully. And that's why, like, you do your thing, I do my thing. And obviously we all benefit collectively from putting that together. And it's like, we're much better off together than we are if we try to do things separately. And so like, we don't necessarily have a big ego with it. It's like, all right, well, like we each have different stuff that we need to do.
Other as much as the other person.
And at this point, Nick, it's years of this, right? Like RP started in 2014. Is that right?
It's been a little over 10 years. 10
years of being partners with this man. And then you were friends with him for years before that. Like, dude, you guys are compounding years. Like, it's time. It's a lot of time.
So there's a big trust element too, for sure. And sometimes you can't really put a price tag on that because, like, I mean, you have all sorts of different handshake deals in the world. Yeah, for sure. Like, no, we trust each other explicitly. Like, almost no one in this world that I would trust more than Mike. And I think he would. I mean, hopefully he would say the same. So
I imagine he would. Probably make an inappropriate joke in there though too.
Oh, he'd make lots of jokes. Yeah.
All right, Nick,
even then, sorry, one last thing.
Good.
Even just like mannerisms and stuff like that, because I've spent so much time around him too. Like some people say, like, dude, sometimes I can't tell you guys apart with like the way that you talk or say things or stuff like that. I'm like, oh, I don't know. I'm sure that I have picked up on it, especially if I spend time up in Michigan at his house. I feel like I come back and I'll like make some jokes, and my wife's just like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, sorry, I gotta turn off a little bit of that mic stuff.
Off the mic.
I gotta like get back into more, I don't know, straight laced dad mode or something like that. So yeah, it's funny.
I remember when I first started
listening. I mean, yeah.
When I first started listening to Mike, I would have it on like on speak like out loud, and my girlfriend would be like, "What are you listening to?" And I'm like, "This is a sports scientist. You wouldn't know it by listening to him."
Yeah. All right. One last note.
Yeah, go ahead.
But this is another thing that I learned too. Yeah, I remember like wanting to filter Mike a lot, up until, I don't know, let's call it the last 6 months, year or so. It's like Mike, like, like 80% Mike, 70% Mike, 60% Mike, and but people like that, man. And it's just it's very organic. And so I'm like, Mike, be 95% Mike, and he can go and he can do that, and people like it, and they like all the jokes and all that. So just let him roll with it, man. People really do like that. Again, actually, like, you're not going to be for everyone. So
when we were in Ohio at the Arnold, talking to people after they got to talk to Mike and Jared, there's a lot of people like, man, Mike is just like he is on YouTube.
Yeah, it's good.
Like,
it's good. It's always disappointing when you meet someone and they're not the way that they are online or however.
Yeah, slightly more filtered in person than
that 5% will get you canceled. So you do need the 95. You can't go 400.
Yeah, you do need that because whew.
But I can see that.
And he knows that.
Yeah. I can see that proclivity though, especially like you're running a big business, you're like, people swear, like things like that. You're like, oh, maybe people won't like that. I can imagine that would be something that would be slightly stressful, but then maybe you've learned over time that people just, like who Mike is, and they want to see more of that, not filtered Mike, not being himself.
The big thing that I've learned is like and I used to kind of pride myself on being like, oh, I'm Switzerland, right? Like RP is Switzerland or whatever, because we're nutrition, so we can work with all these different training camps and whatnot. But on something like that, it's like, we're going to turn some people off with the way that we go about stuff now. And it took me a while to realize that, like, I can be okay with that.
Yeah.
Like, we're not going to be for everyone, because when you're for everyone, you're for no one. But like, no. We're going to swear. We're going to have fun. We're going to joke around. I'm going to let, Mike's going to be Mike. And guess what? Like, I love it. It's hilarious. I love Mike too. Like, we can joke all sorts of stuff and do all that. And, we do a little bit more on the podcast. But like, if we're just hanging out, it's like, yeah, okay, let's take 95% Mike and put him out there. And a lot of people are going to like that. But for the people that don't, it's like, that's okay. I think there's different people out there. You can go follow them. That's totally cool. Like, no worries.
But dude, then the people just love you more.
Yeah.
Like if you push away the people, that's fine. But the people that love you will just be like, oh shit, like I love these motherfuckers. Like they die for you more. That's how. Yeah, I get it.
100%.
Yeah.
All right, Nick. Well,
Yeah.
thanks so much for coming on, man. I think you guys have built something amazing.
Yeah, Nick, you were here for a while.
Yeah.
We appreciate you for kicking it with us.
Thank you.
Dude, no worries. I like talking about all this stuff, man. I like talking about training, lifting, RP. It's all good. Yeah, like I said, I have fun when I get to chatting about all this stuff. So I appreciate you guys having me on. I'll let my mother know that I'm finishing up the STD podcast.
We'll be sure to send you a shirt.
Yeah, once I get some shirts going, we'll send you one.
Oh God, my wife will be embarrassed to go out in public with me.
We'll send her one
Sure
too,
say,
Nick.
sir?
Don't you worry.
Oh God, good luck with that one. My kids will be like, "What's that mean?"
Time for
it's
the
our
birds
initials.
and the bees,
It's
courtesy
our
of
initials.
Uncle
Yeah.
STD.
Save that for a couple of years from now, maybe. Dude, my
Trevor
son's 11 and a
and
half.
Dylan.
My God, I'm going to have to be doing that.
Yeah,
in a couple of days anyway. So.
Oof. Yes, I remember myself at 11 and a half. 12.
I don't want to remember myself at 11 and a half.
Get your hands full, Nick.
Yeah, we'll see. They're good kids. Again, guys, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much. Have a good day, okay? Have a good week.
Yeah.